Hello everyone, welcome to Drishti IAS. My name is Saloni Nankyolier, and in this video we will cover the ongoing conflict between the United States and Venezuela over power, politics and oil. So let us see what has happened. The US has deployed its aircrafts, its submarines and warships near the Venezuelan waters. So quickly let us see, where is Venezuela? This is Venezuela. Venezuela is a country in the South American continent. This is the US and these are the Caribbean islands. So the US has deployed its aircrafts and submarines in the Venezuelan waters. And the reason that the US cited behind this deployment is that because this is an infamous drug trafficking zone, the US wants to target these illicit drug traffickers and narco terrorists. This is what the US claims. But what does Venezuela feel? Venezuela feels that this is a direct attack on its sovereignty, and rightly so, because by now the world is wise enough to understand that whenever such interventions happen, such deployments happen, they are mostly political in nature. These are just the reasons that are given on surface, but there are underlying political reasons, because very often would a country really want to focus on illicit drug trafficking or narco terrorism. It is mostly the politics of power, the politics of oil, and this is what Venezuela also fears at the moment. So let us quickly see what Venezuela's fears are. First and foremost, the country feels that this could be a regime shift move by the US. Why? Because the current president of Venezuela, Mr. Maduro, is believed to have anti-US sentiments. He is believed to be pro-China, pro-Russia and anti-US. That is why the country feels that this deployment could be an ulterior motive, could have an ulterior motive of regime shift in Venezuela, where Mr. Maduro would be displaced altogether and a person of pro-US sentiments could be given that position. In fact, the US has a history of past interventions, which we will be discussing in the next slide. Because of these things, Venezuela fears that this could be a regime shift move by the US. So much so that the country has gone ahead and termed this to be an American coup. This is the term which is being used by Venezuela at the moment. So the first fear that the country has, that this could be a regime shift move, and the second fear is the loss of its sovereignty. Because we are talking about Venezuelan waters. Venezuela should have control over these areas, but if the US deploys its aircrafts and submarines in that region, then this could be a loss of sovereignty for Venezuela. These are the fears that the country has at the moment because of the past interventions that the US has been doing earlier as well. So let us look at those past interventions. It all started in 1823 by the Monroe Doctrine. So this doctrine was given by the then president of US, Mr. Monroe, and he basically asked the Europe to back off or stay away from the Latin American region, because Latin America is US's backyard. This is the term that the country used, that Latin America is our backyard, which means that Latin America is US's sphere of influence. US has a lot of influence in that region, so Europe must back off from that region. So it started in 1823 with the Monroe Doctrine, and this was strengthened in 1904 by the Roosevelt Doctrine. This was given by the then president, Mr. Roosevelt, and he further went ahead and stated that the US can have direct intervention in the Latin American region if need be. If there are national security concerns, the US can have direct intervention. US can directly intervene in the Latin American region. Till now, we were not talking about direct intervention. Till now, we were only calling Latin America to be our sphere of influence. But in 1904, it was declared that the US can directly intervene if need be so. Then there have been a series of coup attempts. One in 2002 and then in 2019 also. In 2002, Mr. Chavez He was also believed to have anti-US sentiments. There was a coup which was attempted against him, and then US's role was alleged in this coup. And then 2019 also a similar thing happened. So because of these past incidents, Venezuela fears that this deployment or this intervention also at the moment can have an ulterior motive of regime shift in the country. So what could be the possible reasons for US's actions? As I already mentioned that whenever such a thing happens, there are political motives behind this. So here also we see politics. Politics of what? Politics of oil. Politics, geopolitics, politics of power, and even domestic US politics. Let's talk about all these things one by one. Oil. So Venezuela is believed to have the largest proven oil reserves of the world. So it has 17 to 18% of global oil reserves of the world. That is why US would want to have its dominance in that region, and a lot of export import happens in this region, and a lot of importers for this oil are Russian people, Russian companies and Chinese company. India also imports from Venezuela, but not to such a great extent because of the US sanctions that are placed on Venezuela. But a lot of export and import happens of oil in Venezuela because of the reserves, the great oil reserves that the country has. That is why US wants to place its dominance in the region. Then geopolitics also, because Russia and China, these are one of the major buyers or import-export trade partners with Venezuela. So again, US would want to place its dominance so that it can further maneuver all these relations, the bilateral relations between Venezuela and Russia, between Venezuela and China. So these things can also be taken care of if US places its dominance in that region. And then domestic US politics also, because what is the reason that the US gave? That US wants to focus on drug trafficking and narco terrorism. So this is going to benefit the people of the US. So domestically also this can be used as a voter appeal. However, the ulterior motive could be something different. But these reasons of the surface can actually be used as a main motive, like for voter appeal also. So domestic US sentiments can also be taken care of because of all these political motives that we see here. So these are mostly political in nature, but who is actually suffering in all these things? It is the people of Venezuela, because the current leader also in Venezuela, he does not enjoy a lot of voter sentiment. In fact, the elections were contested, so Mr. President over there also, he does not enjoy a lot of voter support. So ultimately the people of Venezuela are suffering. There's hyperinflation in the country, the economy setup is not good. So all these things are basically just hampering the lifestyle of people living there. So ultimately it is the people who are suffering because of these political tensions and conflicts between US and Venezuela. So we must take care of these things, like the election should happen in a transparent manner, in a free and transparent manner. The leader that is there should actually enjoy voter support, and no third party intervention should be there. No other country should actually attack the sovereignty of other country. That is the case that we saw here, that US basically wants to attack the sovereignty of some other country. These things should also not happen, because ultimately it is the people who suffer the most in all these cases. So that was all for today's video. India is not directly going to face catastrophic consequences because we do not have a lot of import and export of oil from Venezuela. But if the global oil prices rise because of instability in the Venezuelan region, then our economy is also going to face hardships. So let us hope that stability is maintained in the region and the people also do not suffer a lot. So that was all for today's video. Now let us practice a question for prelims. Consider the following statements regarding the Monroe Doctrine. 1. It was announced in 1823 by US President James Monroe. 2. It opposed European colonization and interference in the Americas. 3. It gave the US the right to intervene in Latin American countries directly. Select the correct statements. 1 only, 2 only, 1 and 2 only, 1, 2 and 3. Please provide your answers in the comment section and we will meet in a new video.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.